The Strait of Hormuz is on the brink. The US has just deployed its most powerful naval fleet, and Iran is responding. This could change global oil military balance and the future of the region within hours. A low, constant hum spread across the dark waters of the Strait of Hormuz as radar screens flickered to life aboard multiple vessels cutting through the night. The sea itself appeared calm, almost indifferent, but beneath that stillness, layers of movement had begun to unfold. Naval formations shifted into position with calculated precision. Communications traffic intensified. Surveillance aircraft traced wide arcs overhead, their presence barely visible but unmistakably felt. In one of the world's most strategically sensitive waterways, where nearly a fifth of global oil supply passes through narrow shipping lanes, a sudden surge of military activity broke the fragile equilibrium that had held for weeks. Reports began to emerge almost simultaneously from multiple sources, each pointing to the same development: a large-scale US naval deployment moving toward the Strait of Hormuz. The formation included advanced destroyers, support vessels, and what analysts described as one of the most capable strike group configurations assembled in recent months. The timing was not incidental. It followed a series of escalating incidents involving Iranian forces and commercial shipping in the region. The significance was immediate and unmistakable. This was not simply a routine deployment, it was a calculated signal of power projection in one of the most critical choke points in the global energy system. According to Iranian state media, the movement of US naval forces into the Strait of Hormuz was framed as a direct provocation designed to pressure Tehran at a moment of heightened regional tension. Iranian officials said that the deployment represented an attempt to assert dominance over waters that Iran considers vital to its national security. Military spokesmen within Iran's Revolutionary Guard claimed that any increase in foreign military presence would be closely monitored and, if necessary, met with a proportional response. Iranian officials stated that their naval units had already increased patrol frequency along key segments of the Strait of Hormuz, particularly near areas where commercial shipping traffic converges. According to these reports, fast attack craft and coastal missile batteries were placed on elevated alert status, signaling readiness to respond to what Tehran described as unauthorized military maneuvers. Iranian media outlets further claimed that surveillance drones had been deployed to track US fleet movements in real time. The messaging from Tehran extended beyond immediate military posture. Iranian officials framed the situation as part of a broader strategic confrontation, arguing that control over the Strait of Hormuz represents not just a regional issue, but a global economic lever. According to their statements, any attempt to challenge Iran's influence in these waters could trigger consequences that extend far beyond the Gulf. But the story quickly became far more complicated. Before we break down how this deployment could reshape control of the Strait of Hormuz, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the latest dramatic developments shaping global geopolitics. According to US defense officials and multiple American media reports, the naval deployment to the Strait of Hormuz was not intended as a provocation, but as a stabilizing measure aimed at ensuring the security of international shipping lanes. US officials stated that recent incidents involving tanker seizures and drone surveillance near commercial vessels had raised concerns about the safety of maritime transit through the region. The US Navy's presence, according to these reports, is designed to provide layered protection. That includes guided missile destroyers, equipped with advanced radar systems capable of tracking multiple airborne and surface threats simultaneously. These systems work by detecting incoming objects, calculating trajectories, and deploying interceptors if necessary. In practical terms, it means the fleet can identify and neutralize potential threats before they reach critical shipping routes. US officials also emphasized coordination with allied naval forces operating in the region, including vessels from European and Gulf states. Joint patrols, intelligence sharing, and synchronized movement patterns are intended to create a unified security framework across the Strait of Hormuz. According to analysts, this type of coordinated presence reduces the likelihood of isolated incidents escalating into broader confrontations. At the same time, US officials rejected claims that the deployment was linked to offensive operations. Instead, they described it as a defensive posture aimed at preserving the free flow of commerce through one of the world's most essential maritime corridors. between these narratives lies a complex reality that analysts are still working to understand. What does this mean for the global energy system? The answer is straightforward. The Strait of Hormuz is not just another waterway, it is a critical artery of global trade. Roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through this narrow passage, connecting producers in the Persian Gulf to markets across Asia, Europe, and beyond. The Strait of Hormuz functions as a bottleneck. At its narrowest point, shipping lanes are only a few miles wide, making them highly vulnerable to disruption. Oil tankers, some carrying millions of barrels of crude, must navigate carefully defined corridors to avoid collisions and maintain flow efficiency. Any interference in this system, whether through military activity or perceived threat, can have immediate ripple effects across global markets. The US deployment targets this exact vulnerability. By positioning advanced naval assets within and around the Strait of Hormuz, the United States is effectively signaling its capacity to maintain open shipping lanes under contested conditions. This includes not only defensive capabilities, but also the logistical infrastructure required to sustain prolonged operations in the region. For Iran, the Strait of Hormuz represents leverage. The ability to influence or disrupt traffic through this corridor provides a strategic tool in broader geopolitical negotiations. Iranian officials have repeatedly emphasized that any external pressure on Tehran could be met with actions affecting maritime transit. The message was clear. Control over the Strait of Hormuz remains a central pressure point in the balance of power between Iran and the United States. The immediate military reaction was swift. US naval forces increased patrol frequency and expanded surveillance coverage across key sectors of the Strait of Hormuz. Aircraft carriers adjusted positioning to support rapid response operations. Iranian naval units mirrored these movements, creating a dense and closely monitored maritime environment where even minor miscalculations carry significant risk. That spike in military activity has consequences far beyond the immediate region. Regional governments began issuing statements within hours. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates called for restraint while quietly reinforcing their own maritime security measures. Oman, positioned at the entrance of the Strait of Hormuz, emphasized the importance of maintaining open communication channels to prevent accidental escalation. Global markets responded almost instantly. Oil prices rose, shipping insurance costs climbed, freight expenses surged. Traders reacted not only to the current situation, but to the potential for disruption. Even the perception of instability in the Strait of Hormuz can trigger significant price fluctuations, given the volume of energy resources that depend on uninterrupted transit. That spike in oil prices has consequences far beyond energy markets. Increased fuel costs translate into higher transportation expenses, which then feed into broader inflationary pressures. Supply chains, already sensitive to disruption, face additional strain as companies adjust routes, schedules, and risk assessments. Diplomatic channels quickly became active. European leaders urged de-escalation, while international organizations called for adherence to maritime law. Back-channel communications between Washington and Tehran reportedly intensified, aimed at preventing the situation from spiraling into direct confrontation. In the United States, domestic political reactions began to take shape. Lawmakers debated the scale and intent of the deployment, with some supporting a strong stance on maritime security, and others warning of the risks associated with increased military presence in a volatile region. The situation quickly became part of a broader conversation about US strategy in the Middle East. Iran maintains that the US naval deployment in the Strait of Hormuz represents a direct challenge to its sovereignty and a potential precursor to further escalation. The United States maintains that its actions are defensive, focused on ensuring the stability and security of global shipping lanes. The gap between these positions remains significant. Each side views the same movements through a fundamentally different strategic lens. For Iran, increased US presence signals pressure and potential encirclement. For the United States, it represents deterrence and the protection of international commerce. This tension reflects a broader reality that extends beyond the immediate events in the Strait of Hormuz. The region operates within a delicate balance where economic interests, military capabilities, and political objectives intersect. Small shifts can produce outsized effects. Limited actions can generate wide-reaching consequences. As naval forces continue to operate in close proximity and political messaging intensifies, the margin for error narrows. Each maneuver is observed, each signal is interpreted, each response carries weight. Will this deployment remain a calculated show of force, or is it the beginning of a deeper and more sustained confrontation? Stay tuned for further updates as this situation continues to develop. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss the latest dramatic geopolitical developments shaping the world.